Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Creamsicle Chronicle podcast. I am JT Olson. With me, new full-time co-host, Andrew Harbaugh. Andrew, how are you?
I'm doing good. After that intro, I feel like I need to watch Fast Five, and I'm waiting for Vin Diesel to pop up and talk about family. Goodness gracious. Yeah, no, I'm good now. That got me awake.
I told my editor, okay, I want more bells and whistles for our podcast. I wanna give it some production value.
That checks some boxes.
Yeah. And I love how as soon as I get it, I immediately mess it up. Peek behind the production curtain. I was just saying, okay, I'm gonna hit record, I'm gonna give the preview, and then I'm gonna hit the intro, and then immediately it only gives me one button to hit the intro. And I'm like, okay, so I already messed up what I wanted to do.
That's okay. We got the Fast Five intro. We're ready to go.
That's right. We're putting it together on the fly.
Exactly.
But that's not why people will listen. They'll listen because we got Bucs news to talk about. Lots of it, actually. This is roster cutdown week. This is the 53-man. This is your team, your 2025 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Andrew, what are your initial impressions? What was the first thing that immediately jumped out to you?
My first thought was if Dennis's shoulder's not better, which shoulder injuries for a linebacker, I mean, he's had that going back to Pitt, but shoulder injuries for a linebacker are always usually a lingering issue. And my thought is if he's not healthy, David's going to have to pull Iron Man duty for the second year in a row and play Mr. Do-It-All again. And I totally think he's up for it. I think he's capable of it. But we also have to be realistic at his age. It's not going to be easy to repeat the season he had last year. So linebacker, I'm a bit concerned. I'm glad they got Nick Jackson back on the practice squad. I like John Bullock being there as a depth piece, and they're going to use him for special teams. But, yeah, linebacker was my first concern. And honestly, some of the offensive line depth I was a little bit worried about, but they have enough on that practice squad. They really kind of made sure everyone they cut is there. So they have a nice bunch of insurance policies with Michael Jordan, Tyler McClellan. I think they're okay there. But, yeah, linebacker was really my biggest, this is going to be interesting to see how it goes for 17-plus games.
Yeah, I'm with Anthony Walker being released, and he never came off the physically unable to perform list, the off-season injury list. He was just never healthy into camp at any point. But I thought he'd eventually come back, and that made me feel okay about this linebacker room. With him gone, Deion Jones is, he's kind of found a second wind in his career as a coverage linebacker. But I don't love that being the linebacker 3. And then, props to John Bullock as a UDFA making the team. He's got special teams value. I would really feel uncomfortable with him getting any kind of significant minutes, and they are not far off from that happening. If Levante goes down, who do you want as your attack linebacker? Deion Jones, who's more of that coverage guy, or undrafted rookie John Bullock? And neither is a great option, so I was hoping with Walker gone, they'd make a run at someone who was released or another free agent, someone like Jalen Reeves-Maven, who, if nothing else, is a veteran. He's a special teams ace. He's played significant snaps at certain points in his career. So, yeah, linebacker right now, I'm not as comfortable as I wish I was with.
Yeah, and I think Bowles does a good job of masking a lot of that. Last year, again, it's not that much different of a linebacker group. That was a big issue last year. And I love having Emeka Egbuka, and I love watching him in the preseason, and I think he's going to be absolutely insane to start the year, and I think he's going to be a great pro and a long-time Buck. But I can't help but think it would be really nice to have, and obviously the way receiver injuries have happened, it's going to be nice. But I can't help but think it'd be nice to know you had somebody like a Jahad Campbell playing alongside Levante David, or even just waiting and seeing, because I know the shoulder was an issue there too. But yeah, or something else for free agency even. Who knows? But it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, and then there were a couple of names who were released who I thought the Bucks might be interested in. One of them was Chris Paul, aka Pooh Paul from Ole Miss, and a lot of Bucks fans had him on the radar coming out of Ole Miss this year. The Rams cut him out of camp, and they didn't even sign him to their practice squad. So he was there to be had if Jason Light was interested. I also really liked Michael Barrett out of Michigan 2 years ago. He's fast and athletic. It seems like they're really a lot more comfortable with the guys in-house they have. Nick Jackson did have a nice preseason, but man, I really thought they'd go after somebody out there.
Yeah, there was enough names, like even Dorian M from the Vikings. I don't want to say his name wrong. Mousy, we'll say, I guess. He got picked up by the Titans, I want to say. I even thought he might be a fun little depth piece, but obviously Titans have a little bit of an early waiver claim. But really, even in general, the Bucks didn't do anything with the waiver wire. I joked with my boss ironically between the Vikings and the Bucks. I said Kwesi and Jason gave me so much content to write about today because they didn't make a single waiver claim on anybody. So yeah, it was just odd. But again, they brought back a lot of everybody. They had a couple players that were not on their team in the preseason they brought in, but I think it showed they were happy with the roster and they were glad to get everybody back.
I think the one group that they kind of told us they weren't thrilled with, and you touched on it a little bit already, was the offensive line. Keeping 8 is a very dicey number for me, especially with one of those 8 being Tristan Wirfs, who's coming off an injury. So they only have 7 active offensive linemen, with their starting 5, including Charlie Heck, and then Elijah Klein, and Benjamin Chukwuma, and that's it. That's all they have. And they re-signed a bunch of guys to the practice squad, with Michael Jordan, with Tyler McClellan, I think Ben. I can't remember his last name.
Scott.
Scott, thank you. I was thinking Powers, but I knew that wasn't right.
Jake. Yeah, that was Majors. Good Lord. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. But I think the fact that they're going into the season with just 7 healthy offensive linemen, I think it kind of tells you what they thought about the depth of their offensive line room, which is, we want to have them in our back pocket in case we need them, but we don't really see the value in having them on the active roster. And I think the name you mentioned, Jake Majors, would have been that last interior guy, but they had that injury settlement with him. He's not healthy. I think it was a wrist injury. I'm not sure what the timetable will be back, if he could be back at all this year. But man, going into the season with 7 healthy offensive linemen, that's a little scary. You are one injury away from undrafted free agent Benjamin Chukwuma protecting your franchise.
Yeah, Benjamin Chukwuma, who's played football, I think, for a collective of 4 or 5 years. All due respect to him.
Yeah, he was a big-time project coming out of college.
Yeah.
And to his credit, he played well in the preseason. I was more impressed than I expected to be, but man, that is not great.
Both him and their other project, Garrett Green, I thought the coaching staff did a good job of putting them in positions to succeed. So, and I'm glad they got Green back. I liked watching him both at West Virginia as a quarterback, but now I thought the Bucks kind of showed they can turn the corner with him a little bit. And he could turn into something.
Let me shift gears a little bit and ask you, and I'm glad it's you on this podcast with me, but Kyle Trask, the pride of Gator Nation. What were your thoughts on the Bucks' decision to release him in favor of a guy who'd been in camp like 2 weeks, not even?
I I today the wire sites, we had a collective group piece come out, and it was every team's most surprising cut. And I initially thought Nick Jackson, but then I ended up writing Kyle Trask for my choice. And the reason I picked Trask was not because necessarily that I was surprised, because the play is not there with him. I mean, and it's one of those things where I think he was kind of behind the eight ball because he had the 1 year at Florida that was great. And he had Kyle Pitts and everybody else around him. That team that year was something else. And even then, they still couldn't really win anything big. That's a different topic for a different day. But that was his lone starting year, because like even going back to high school, he didn't even start in high school because the school he went to was so talented that he didn't start there. So he got to Florida as a back off of potential and size and arm talent. Went to Florida, was behind some other guys, and when he got his chance, he shined. But when that pick was made, second round was steep. I think ironically it worked out that Pitts really turned out to be more of the playmaker for him. And ironically now Pitts is struggling in Atlanta, which I swear is Atlanta's fault, because I stand by Pitts as one of the more talented tight ends in the league. But I was shocked mainly because he was Bruce Arians' project. And Bruce Arians still obviously around the building has some say. And that really felt like Jason walked into Bruce's office, if he has one in the building, and was like, look, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm sorry. My job's a little bit more on the line than yours. And I will say, even for Bridgewater not playing much over the last couple of years, looked much better coming off the street of being a high school coach than Trask did being in camp all the way back to when Brady was there. So, yeah, it was a long time coming, and I hope he gets somewhere where he can still be around. And he's a very good backup, but I think at this point he might even just be a camp arm / security option. So, yeah, it was surprising, but it wasn't at the same time.
Yeah, I'm glad you led that because I am the chief of the Kyle Trask hater club. And, I'd rather it come from someone who's not me because it needs to be said. Kyle Trask seems like a really nice guy. I want nothing but the best for Kyle Trask. But I firmly believe his future is in like real estate or, marketing or something that is not football. Because I've never seen it with Kyle. And when they signed Bridgewater, it was like a relief almost. Like the fear of seeing Kyle Trask on the football field, it could be coming to an end. And it made perfect sense because one, he looked really good in the preseason, and Trask in 3 opportunities I thought looked shaky at best. And two, just the amount of experience that Bridgewater brings, having started 65-ish NFL games where I think Kyle Trask has thrown 12 NFL passes. So between the experience and the ability we've seen on the field, even this preseason, this was a move that had to be made. And I didn't expect it because I did think they'd keep 3 quarterbacks, and I thought Trask might be that emergency quarterback, or they might figure out who the backup is later on because they were committed to Trask. They did re-sign him this offseason. But I think you said it best, this was a long time coming.
Yeah, and I think too, like you talked about what his future is. He strikes me as kind of how Matt Barkley was coming out of USC, where there was that potential. You didn't know what was going to happen. He was a day 2 pick as well, I think. I think he was like a 3rd round pick. I know we're live, but we're going to look this up real fast as I talk. But I think that 4th round pick, darn. My point is, though, Barkley has hung around for a very long time, like I couldn't tell you the last time he started a meaningful game. But and I don't even think he's on the team now. But the point is, he was able to stick around for a while because he's got a good arm. Trask has a good arm. It's just it's not good enough to kind of deliver when you need it. Like I think he's a perfect backup choice for either a reunion with Canales in Carolina or Cohen in Jacksonville, because both teams obviously have established starters and backups, but he would be a very nice QB3 there that's familiar with both systems and a real big in case of emergency type situation. So I think he has options.
Yeah, I'll give him that. I mean, I saw the Panthers just picked up Hendon Hooker today and put him on the practice squad after he, unfortunately, just washed out of Detroit. I think Kyle Trask would be an upgrade there, so I think the Panthers make sense as a. I don't know who their primary backup is, but if not the third string quarterback. So I do think he'll eventually find a landing spot. But I mean, if that's your number 2 going into the year, like it could have been for the Bucs and has been for the last few years, that's where you have to make an upgrade, especially if you're a team who's looking to compete for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, Barkley, I looked it up too, just more so, just to further this comparison. In 11 years of his career, he played for 11 different teams. So
at the Josh Johnson pathway,
pretty much. I mean, he checked off a lot of teams. Like he played for Eagles, Cardinals, Bears, 49ers, Bengals, Bills, Titans, Panthers, Falcons, Giants, Jaguars. So, I mean, he was everywhere. Cal Trask 2.0.
His frequent flyer miles.
Yes.
But, I mean, maybe they'll be Trask. He'll latch on with another team, and if not a permanent home, he'll bounce around for a while. Every quarterback gets another look, especially one that had a high pick invested into him. So I'm sure he'll land on his feet somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm happy it's not in Tampa.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a matter of where, I think.
So you mentioned you wrote an article about biggest surprise cut. For me, the biggest surprise wasn't a cut, but it was one of the players they kept. And that was wide receiver Cameron Johnson. I was surprised. I liked Cameron Johnson from what we've seen of him in flashes, but he was hurt most of training camp this year. And when we finally saw him in that last preseason game, I think he dropped a really catchable pass that would have gone for, if not a touchdown, would have put him inside the 5. And man, he just did not have a good showing. I thought Tez Johnson, Sterling Shepard, Ryan Miller, those guys were all going to bump him out. Trey Palmer might be a guy they kept over him. That was a surprise to me, seeing Cameron Johnson. And I like Cameron Johnson, but I was pretty surprised to even see him on the roster, even with the injuries to Godwin and McMillan.
Yeah, and I think too with Palmer, that was the one I personally would have opted for, because this team I feel like does lack a true burner, and Palmer proved to have that ability. Like I was joking with one of my writers that him ending up in New Orleans is the most on-brand receiving option they could have, because between him, Shaheed, and Cooks, it's basically run straight as fast as you can, and we're just going to hope to get the ball to you and you catch it. Like that's all the Saints offense is, which is hilarious considering Rattler's going to start for them and his arm talent's not that great, but apparently Shuck might be able to improve that after he's done collecting his first AARP check, but that's besides the point. But yeah, I agree. That was a bit of a shocker, but again, they're doing what they're doing. The receiving room, like I said, just like the linebackers with the injuries, it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of perform here early on.
Yeah, and I think they'll be fine, even if they sustained another injury, which knock on wood doesn't happen. But
right,
this team is so deep on offense. Even if you're banged up wide receiver, you've got a great offensive line. You've got a stable of running backs. You've got a rock solid tight end in Kate Otten. You can piecemeal the wide receiver position together for now. And even if it is, Mike Evans and Tez Johnson and Ryan Miller, or Abuka and Sterling Shepard, you can make a lot of combinations work in different ways. This Bucks offense is going to be all right, and that makes it even that much more surprising that they kept a guy like Cam Johnson instead of a guy who, a fifth linebacker, a sixth defensive lineman. But I think even if Johnson has to see the field, I don't think that's a terrible thing necessarily.
Yeah, and again, I'm not completely out on him by any means, but like I said, I liked Palmer a little bit more solely because of the speed aspect he brought. Other than that, I mean, I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but yeah, I'm with you though.
Yeah, can't teach 4.3 speed.
No,
can't coach it. You can't develop it. You got it or you don't.
Exactly.
Were there any other standouts like, ooh, I'm surprised he didn't make it, or ooh, I'm surprised this guy stuck around? Was there anything that just didn't go? Because there were only a few spots available. I think most of the roster was chalk, but yeah, there were just those few surprises for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like, just from what I was following and tracking, I wasn't too surprised by much. And even honestly, around the entire league, there wasn't. I mean, Chris Paul getting cut from the Rams was like a big one, but like in general, I wasn't too surprised with anything. There was no crazy higher draft picks other than Paul being a fifth rounder. And as far as the Bucks go, like I said, Trask going, obviously Jackson going surprised me, but they got him back on practice squad. So, yeah, this is like I said, the surprises they made, they got back, so it kind of lessened that shock value a little bit.
League-wide, the one that it kind of surprised me because he was a early draft pick, but at the same time it didn't because he was not one of the guys I was high on in the draft process. Was it Isaiah Foskey from the Saints? That pass rusher out of Notre Dame. I think their 24, 23 second round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw they cut him, and I'm like, ooh, that's a second round pick you just invested in a few years ago. Okay. Like, he had to be really bad to be cut as a second round pick off a rookie deal.
Yeah, I didn't see he was part of that. Okay, yep, that's worth noting.
Yeah, I know. Not to be a Michigan fan hating on a Notre Dame guy, but Foskey was never someone I was high on. But still, that early in the process, I mean, you drafted him for a reason. It's a different regime, but it's the same general manager.
Yeah, I don't know what that front office does or thinks or any of that, but that's Kellen Moore's problem, not mine.
Right. Oof, talk about bad jobs to land. There's only 32, but man, you got the 32nd best one there.
Yeah. Only slightly better than the Cowboys, or worse than the Cowboys at this point, I would argue.
Yeah, it's not going great there either.
Right.
One thing I thought was cool today, and this isn't even an active roster guy, but someone who the Bucks picked up on the practice squad. One of their two guys they brought in that weren't there in training camp in Tampa. Mo Kamara, the pass rusher from Colorado State 2 years ago. I think he's a really interesting pickup for a practice squad. He was a day 3 pick, if not undrafted. I don't remember when he went, but I had him as a late round player, someone who I thought could be a solid rotation piece in the NFL for a long time. He's got some good hand usage. He plays with leverage. He's not tall, but he has some thickness to him. He's got decent bend. There's a lot there to work with. If he's not great at anything, he's got some ability in everything. So to get him on the practice squad, that's someone I think could challenge Marquise Watts for that fifth edge job. And there's some special teams value that Watts brings, but you've had Watson Camp for a couple of years and he's never really materialized. Kamara could be a guy who challenges him down the line.
Yeah, I forgot about him actually. Yeah, no, getting him, he was a 5th-round pick last year for the Dolphins. So maybe Jason Light saw the whole Colorado State thing and thought maybe I can get a new Shaq Barrett version. So
That's undersized and everything. He's the next Shaq Barrett if there ever was one.
And then a really deep throwback, Joey Porter, if you want to go back to Colorado State pass rushers off the edge. So yeah, no, I think he definitely. I think it was Greg Allman pointed out that they didn't keep a lot of outside linebackers, so Kamara could have a chance to be active for a couple games. So
yeah, I think he was the only one on the practice squad. I think Kamara is the only guy they signed.
Yeah, and apart from adding that to also the active roster, so I think he has a chance to kind of see some playing time once he establishes himself a little bit.
Yeah, and how good he will be is to be determined based entirely off of what number he gets in Tampa. So time will tell. You get that good pass rushing number, you're going to be successful. If you get stuck with 48, it's been nice knowing you. That's it. It's over.
Yeah, exactly.
R.I.P. Greer, whose name I can't remember.
Antonio
Greer. Yep, see, 48s. They're not long for this world.
Exactly.
All right. Let's transition a little bit. Talking about final rosters being set, not just for the Bucs, but around the league. Going to take a quick break for a commercial, and then we're going to talk about some season predictions. All right. So, Andrew, what are some of your thoughts now that all the rosters are set? Looking around the league, how do you see some of these playoff teams shaping out? I mean, we know Bucs are good, but kind of taking like a whole NFL perspective from it.
Yeah, I think, I know, I mean, obviously the Vikings traded for Thielen today. There's been no craze like Parsons obviously stays put, Hendrickson stays put, all these, McLaurin, everyone who requested a trade this offseason is basically stayed put and got an extension outside of Parsons. But I don't think a whole lot has changed. I think the Bucs still have one of the better rosters, not just in the NFC, but the whole NFL. Obviously, they have their holes, but every roster does. But that being said, I still like how the Commanders are built right now. I like how Eagles are still the Eagles until they're not, especially with the offensive and defensive lines they have. It's funny, I think, and this might just be because I've seen them the most, something tells me the NFC North's going to be weird this year, and I don't know who's going to come out of it. I think it's still going to be the Vikings or the Lions, but I don't think they're going to be 15-2 and 14-3 again. I think they could be like an 11-6 and a 10-7 scenario. I just think that whole division is going to beat the crap out of each other. But I think if anyone's going to pull a surprise, in the NFC, I would say the Cardinals, and obviously the Bucs get to play them when they retire Simeon Rice's jersey, so that'll be a fun matchup to see later in the season as well.
Yeah, I see the NFC kind of similarly. My two sleeper teams this year are the Cardinals, and I actually kind of like what the Panthers are building. Offensive line investments, Bryce Young coming along, getting Derek Brown back to help that defense. I think they could be feisty this year. Living up here in Michigan, I'm right in between Lions and Bears country, so I hear a lot of the conversation up here. And I kind of see it the same way. I think this could be a division that has three teams at 10-7 or 11-6. I think really it could be any of the Lions, Vikings, or Packers, especially if the Packers pull off this Micah Parsons rumor that's going around. So I think it is a really difficult schedule. I think they're playing the AFC North and the NFC East as their crossover divisions, and those are some really tough divisions. So I do think the Lions will take a step back. I do think the Vikings will naturally take a step back with an inexperienced quarterback, even though Kevin O'Connell is a sorcerer who can turn anyone into a great quarterback, it feels like. Um, and then Eagles are still very talented. I think they'll be the first or second best team in the NFC. Just I worry about Saquon Barkley because he got so many carries last year. That's a lot to put on him, and history shows us that guys who take on that much of a workload typically get banged up in the future. So we'll see. But with that said, let's run around the NFC. I'll give you a division. You give me your winner, and then give me 3 wild card teams after. All
Okay.
right. So we'll just do a quick whip around. NFC East.
I would say the division winner there. I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Commanders. I think
Okay.
that whole roster was really young last year. Got some good experiences. Obviously, they did what they did to the Bucs in the playoff game, even though it was close. I'm a big Jaden Daniels fan. I liked him at Arizona State. Now, obviously, went to LSU and now with the Commanders. But yeah, I think they could surprise some folks, and I think Dan Quinn has that team humming.
I do love Jaden Daniels, but I think I'm going to stick with the Eagles on this one until we see something happen that's not necessarily in the script,
Right.
like an injury. I'm still going to bet on the top to bottom talent of that roster. So, all right, moving on. NFC West.
I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I mean,
Nice.
I don't. The Seahawks getting Sam Darnold, I think they're going to be very disappointed going from Geno Smith to him. 49ers, I don't know who Brock Purdy's passing the ball to apart from George Kittle. And McCaffrey's been beaten up a lot in recent years, and the offensive line's getting a little bit older. Health's always just a big issue overall for them. And then the Rams, I fully believe I have a mock coming out tomorrow on my Substack. I wrote, when your quarterback's getting the same medical care that women do when they're delivering children, your body is telling you something. And I don't know if Stafford's going to make it the whole year. And I think that's going to be a very big drop off for them. So I think the Rams are going to be in a tough spot overall. So I think it's ripe for the pickings for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think this is the hardest one for me to project. I know I like the Seahawks the least of this group, even though I like the investments they're making in the offensive line. I don't love the quarterback, and I don't love the playmakers, so I think they're going to struggle to score. I agree about Stafford on back stuff. It doesn't go away. Like
Right.
Everything is connected to the back, and if your back is off, your hips are off, your legs are off. Everything is off. So I think that's something that's going to linger all year. Even though I think McVay could make a Rams-led offense by Jimmy G respectable, I don't think respectable is enough to get it done. Cardinals, I think, are trending in an interesting direction. Kyler Murray is, I think, better than gets credit for because he's short and addicted to Call of Duty. I like the defense they're starting to build. I know it's a work in progress, but Gannon took over that thing as a rebuild just last year, so they're trending in a positive direction at this point. They're going to pound the rock. They've invested in some playmakers. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to go with the 49ers just because Shanahan is going to make it all work offensively, especially on that offensive line. It feels like he's always turning water into wine. I really like the addition of Robert Saleh coming back there. I think it's maybe not the most talented roster, but the talent they have is top tier. Like Fred Warner, Trent Williams, hopefully coming back and being Trent Williams again, even though he's 38. As a lover of offensive line play, I want to see him continue to be great. And then eventually, I think they'll get Brandon Ayuk back. So the playmakers are questionable, because McCaffrey is older and often injured recently. But I think they have the most upside of that group, so I'm going to go with the 49ers.
No, and I get that. Again, kind of like how the Eagles are in the East. Until they show it to you otherwise, it's always going to be a safe bet.
All right. I'm going to make you commit to one in the NFC North.
I think it's going to be the Lions still. I think the Bears are going to get there eventually. I think the Packers. I think just today I was reading LaFleur and Gutekunst could be on the hot seat. And I think the way they build that team, again, not to plug my mock again, but when I was making picks, the roster is so weird because they've invested in so many different positions and it's such a mixed bag of results. I like Jordan Love, but yeah, I think Kevin O'Connell and what Quessie's done to build that roster. I could say this safely here because I don't think anybody that I know that's a Vikings fan is going to listen to it. Quessie's a horrible drafter. It is comically bad. And I am not entirely sold on McCarthy yet. And it's going to be a big year for him. But again, that roster is built that he has no excuses. Worse than it's even better than what Drew Aller has at Penn State for Mr. No Excuses on the college level. But Dan Campbell is still Dan Campbell. Jared Goff is still playing great. Today he was voted the 15th best player in the league, and that's another discussion for another day. But but yeah, I think the Lions still get it done.
Yeah, I think I saw yesterday. Quessy had 2 full draft classes already completely washed out of Minnesota?
Between 2022 and 2023, he only has Ty Chandler left and Jalen Naylor. And Ty Chandler, I'm fully convinced would have been cut today or yesterday, but some injuries kept him on the roster.
That is brutal. That is absolutely brutal.
And Naylor, I don't know how much longer he has either, but yeah, it's all sorts of bad picks across the board.
And that's such a testament to how good the coaching staff is, to where they won 14 games last year.
Well, he's nailing, home run nailing free agency. It's funny on that aspect because he sent Danielle Hunter to the Texans and gets back to Jonathan Grenard. He's a home run. Gives a lot of money to Andrew Van Ginkel, turns into a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Byron Murphy comes over from the Cardinals, 7 interceptions last year. Obviously, they had Joshua Metellus, who was a late-round pick, and they've developed. So, but I think a lot of that also is Brian Flores, where I think if he's not there, I don't know how that defense looks. But, yeah, again, Quessy can't draft to save his life, but he can find free agents like it's nobody's business.
But I do agree with your overall point. I do think the Lions are winning this division. I do think they take a step back, but I think they're still a very good team. Vikings, I think, are probably my top pick for a wild card. And then I think the Packers will sneak in there as well. Yeah, this is a really good division, and I think it's only going to get better as Ben Johnson moves to Chicago and starts to build that program there. The rebuild is on, but I think there's reason to be hopeful with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams and, the things they're doing over there. It's a little bit pieced together right now, but I think it will get on track. So I'm going to say Lions. And then last but not least, NFC South.
I mean, it's the Bucs. You want to talk about divisions that are owned to a team until somebody proves otherwise. Panthers, as you pointed to, are getting there. But yeah, I mean, this Bucs team is set up to potentially win a Lombardi this year. So I think it's going to be a walk in the park for them. again. I think they easily could go 6-0 in the division, maybe 5-1, drop one of the Panthers, but or the Falcons. But no, I think this is theirs for the taking, and then some this year.
Yeah, I think it's not even close. I think the Panthers and Falcons are both 7 to 9 win teams, and I think the Bucks are a 13-win team. I think there is a sizable gap between the Bucks and the competition, and maybe that's bias talking, but I really think this is, if not the best roster in the NFC, a top 2 roster in the NFC. So I think this one is a pretty open and shut division.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, and then I know you got to roll out of here. So quickly, who is coming out of the NFC this year? Who is representing in the Super Bowl?
It's
And I put you on the spot with it.
I think it's such a homer pick, and I just feel like there's too many things going right, and I say that knowing they're injured to hell and back. But I think between the experiences and the coaching staff and the front office and the veteran leadership and it being a one more ride for Levante David, I think the Bucks can do it. It's really going to determine on staying healthy. Mayfield's got to cut down on the turnovers and staying healthy. Did I mention that part?
Yeah.
I think, honestly, stay healthy and cut down on the turnovers, and they've got it. Like, this offense should put up 30 points a game. Defense just has to be able to stop a nosebleed. I'm not asking them to be able to perform surgery. Just stop a nosebleed, and they should be fine. So I think the Bucks can do it. If I have to not pick the Bucks, I'll go with the Commanders. I think sort of the same reason. So either way, it's interesting.
Yeah. I have a hard time not picking the Bucks to come out of it because I think they have the best roster, and if not the best, if you want to give the edge to Philly as the defending Super Bowl champions, that's totally fine. But I look at the quarterback. I'd rather have Baker Mayfield than Jalen Hurts. The receivers, I think top to bottom, the Bucks have a better room. And Mike Evans, AJ Brown, I think are very comparable players. Running backs, sure, fine. That's Eagles. Offensive line, you can give that to the Eagles, but again, very comparable. Defensive line, I think, those are, again, comparable. I mean, the Eagles lost some pieces. I think the Bucks have some ascending pieces, and Kalijah Kancey and the addition of Reddick, I think, could be a huge difference in this. And I think these are the best 2 rosters. And I don't mean to be a shot at the Lions, but I don't think the Lions are close to these 2 with their questions on the offensive line and their questions at pass rush and the questions with their coordinators they're both replacing. So I think it'll be the Bucks have the best chance because I think the Eagles and the Lions will play each other before the NFC Championship game. So I think you only have to beat one of those 2. And I think the Bucks are the better team. I think they can do it.
Yeah, I think, again, too, I think in the playoffs, if you can run the ball and play reliable defense, that's usually enough. And if you have the trench players, and I think the Bucks can play or check 2 of those 3 boxes for sure. It's just the defense, like I said, just has to be able to stop a nosebleed.
I think they'll be better than that even.
I agree.
I
think the upside's definitely there for much more than that. Maybe not perform surgery, but they could be a physician's assistant, maybe level type of defense.
All right. I know you got to go, so I'm just going to do rapid fire. Give me one name only for these answers.
Okay.
MVP.
Lamar Jackson.
Offensive Player of the Year.
Bijan Robinson.
Defensive Player of the Year.
Trey Hendrickson, because he wants to make Mike Brown more mad.
The spite pick. I love it. Offensive Rookie of the Year.
God, I'm trying to think of rookies. Emeka Ibuka.
Defensive Rookie of the Year.
My God. You know, did I mention I do draft work in my free time? We're live. It's fine.
Creamsicle Chronicles / karaoke.
I'm gonna go with. I'll go with a cheap pick of Abdul Carter.
Fair. I mean, he was the number 1 pick for a reason.
Yeah, I was trying to talk myself into another guy, but nah.
All right. To put my picks on record, I'll go Joe Burrow, MVP,
Okay.
Jahmyr Gibbs, Offensive Player of the Year. But I do like Bijan. Those are the 2 I go back and forth with.
I like that.
Defensive Player of the Year, I'll go with TJ Watt because I like what they invested in their defensive line around him. I'm going to go on Mecca as well for Offensive Rookie of the Year, and give me Carson Schweschinger from the Browns as Defensive Rookie of the Year. Really, really like him.
The Browns fan in me is not upset with that.
All right, I know you got to go, so we'll wrap it up here. Tell the people where they can find you, and we'll call it a day.
You can find me on Twitter at MandrewNFL. Bucks content's there, draft content's there. My Substack is linked that I talked about with the mock. It's linked in my Twitter handle, or my Twitter profile, I should say. Mock's coming out tomorrow, so it's 2 rounds. I'll give you one of Tampa Bay's picks. The positions are linebacker and edge. I'll put it that way. So you gotta click the mock to find out who they are.
Give me Whit Weeks or give me death. I'll say that right now.
I gave Whit Weeks to the Chiefs, so that ain't happening. Sorry, pal.
Oh, you're breaking my heart.
I know. Sorry.
All right, so that's going to do it for us here at the Creamsicle Chronicles. You can catch all my written work at bucksreport.com. Catch me on the Twitter at IcewaterOlson. Until next week, it's Go Bucks.